Okay.
And Ray, were you doing the
Demo.
demos? Cool. I'll pass it over to you.
Cool. Thanks. All right. So we start again with the demo. We start from the issue 8, which is Shen and Emily. You can start it.
Yes, okay, so I'm gonna do the demo of the feature. Um, I will just share my screen here. Okay. Oh wait, is it working now?
Yep.
Okay, great. Um, so our feature or our issue was to add a welcoming prompt if the list that the user is currently working in has no items in it, to sort of prompt them to add their first item. And before I get to that, I'm going to actually show um, something that we added because we realized that if the user hasn't selected a list yet, it would still show, the regular page, and that could cause problems later on for trying to add items if they haven't selected a list. So right now, my local storage is cleared out, and I am signed in, and I have not selected a list yet. So when I do that, and click on list, it tells us you haven't selected a list yet. Click below to select a list. We have a button here that just redirects the user back to the home view to select a list. So then once you do select a list, say you select this one, which is empty, and then go back to the list view. It now says this list is currently empty. Click below to add your first item. And again, a button that, since we have that functionality to add the items in the manage list view, it just clicking the button redirects the user to the manage list view to add the first item. And I think that's really all for the demo. So I'll pass it over to Shane to go through the code.
For sure. Let me just share my screen. So in app.jsx, we changed very little. We pretty much just passed the list path into the list view itself. And that way, as we move into list, we essentially use list path to see if there was no list path selected, aka no list had been clicked on home. We could then check it as this like first conditional within list. Let's see here. Yeah, so along the way, we were using conditionals for all of our rendering. We initially started with, rather than using these ternaries here, we were using like the double and sign. But Lewis was kind enough to share that that's not the best way of doing it because essentially the way that I understand it, sometimes truthy values such as not a number, or if there's like an empty string but the string still exists, things like that will trip that truthy path. So if you do a ternary, it's sort of like it seems to like gather things together before acting upon that conditional. But sorry to get distracted on that real quick, but essentially that's the logic being used down here. And then we're using list path to see if there is one selected. If not, there's that button going back, like home essentially. Here is checking if there is something selected, but there's nothing in the list. That's our empty message, and then prompts with a button to go to manage list. And then this third path down here is if there is in fact something in the data that we're passing down and it's larger than 0 in length, then we have the actual like, here's your searching through the list itself. And then one small thing we added was that I think we added this ternary down here for the search box itself. Let's see here, search term, button on click. Oh, if there was nothing in the search term, the button, if there is something in the search term input, the reset button shows up or not, is what that is. I think that's the majority of it, though. That's about it for our feature this week.
Cool. Give applause for Shane and Emily. I just want to say I think you did a great job in here. Like, pay attention to the detail, like Kathleen mentioned in the chat, which is all the scenario is like handled, which is good. And maybe my quick question: do you find any difficulty to solve this issue?
This one seemed pretty straightforward to us in general. We felt fairly comfortable with it. The only curveball, as I was like as we were putting up the PR, I should say, I was curious if the formatting for those conditionals was like the best practice. So I just asked on our on the PR itself. And that's when we got that clarification, which was really helpful because it felt a little bit weird to have nothing in parentheses as we were putting it up.
Oh yeah, it's nice to ask question actually, which is yeah, you will learn a lot with the PR and then like asking question. Well, any others have any question for them?
I will +1 that asking questions on your PR is really helpful to focus your reviewers' attention on things. That's really nice. A question I did have is when you two were working on this, because this is the most UI issue we've had so far, did you all have any thoughts about when we get to the more like styling of the app? Did you have any thoughts about how you might want to like did this get you thinking about that at all? About what you want the app to look like?
Yeah, we were definitely talking about our hopes for the future with it. I'll let Emily speak more on it though. I don't need to keep talking.
Yeah, I think it definitely kind of brought up some thoughts just because like the way it is now, like it was hard to like not start to like tinker around with styling and stuff because it looks just like not great right now. So it definitely was like it definitely was an issue that got at least me started on sort of thinking. I don't really have any like specific ideas, but definitely started thinking like this is kind of where I'm starting to want to play around with the styling of it.
Yeah, that's great. And I applaud you all for keeping your work scoped to the issue and not getting too much out of the bounds of what you're working on. But I mentioned during office hours this week, and then I forgot to do it, but I think it might be a good idea. I'm going to set up a GitHub discussion board for you all where you can start putting down your thoughts about if you have any ideas for when we get to the styling section, just or if you're like, this is something we should definitely address just so we don't forget it. That way we're not starting from nothing when we get to the, the design of the app and everything. So I'll set that up after our call today.
Yeah, that reminds me one thought I did have, and we discussed, I think, while we were working on the issue, but ended up not or like tabling it for now because I think it was a little bit out of scope. But displaying the name of the list on the list view at some point because it is hard to tell like right now which list you're working on at any given time. So
Love that idea. That's a really good one.
Cool. If there is no question, give last round applause for Shane and Emily, and then we move to the next issue. Issue 9. Andrea and Davina, you can start.
Okay, I will go ahead with the demo. I know that I kind of threw a slight wrench in the plans with some last minute refactoring based on some of the feedback we got. But things seem to be mostly working at the moment. So we had issue number 9, which was the ability for a user to check off an item as purchased, and then it would remain checked for 24 hours after the purchase, assuming that someone doesn't typically need to buy the same thing within the same day. So for our shopping list, when you are logged in, you click on a list and you switch to your list, when you click on a checkbox or really the text, it'll update your Firebase, and you'll see that the stamp has changed. And let's say that we were doing this yesterday. I'm gonna just change it. Well, let's see if we can do it within this minute so you don't have to sit here for a full minute to watch me. And you come back to this list a little while later. Theoretically, and hopefully we'll see this, is the item will automatically uncheck itself when the 24 hours is up. So the one that I changed was Gruyere, and hopefully we just saw it uncheck itself there. So it is working. This is a local version that I'm running, which Davina will explain in a little bit. We had to make one last small change to our code. So I'm going to pass it over to her.
All right, so let me just share my screen real quick. Get rid of that. Don't know where that came from. Okay. So this was a little bit more challenging of an issue. So I'm going to start in Firebase because that was fairly straightforward. We filled out this update item function here in the Firebase file. So here we've just stored our doc. So it references the list path items and then the item that we're updating. And then here we're just calling that update doc function. I believe it might have already been imported. If not, this is something that gets imported from Firebase. We also imported the increment function so that down here, sorry, it's all the way at the bottom. So down here, we're only updating two things, which is why you're only seeing like these two properties of the entire item object. So we're updating the date last purchased and the total number of purchases when a user selects an item. So date last purchased, if it is checked, we're passing in the item ID, obviously, so we can reference the item we want to update, but we're also passing on a parameter whether or not the item is checked. So if it is checked, it's going to update that item with a new date last purchase, which is the new date, which is going to set that as like the current time and date. If it is not checked, it's going to set that date last purchase to null. So if a user unchecks the box, it's going to change this back from the new date to null. So let's say you click on the item and it, you're like, oops, didn't mean to click on that. That's going to change that back to null. And then total purchases is also going to check to see if it's checked. If it is, it's going to increment by 1. So you've purchased this however many times plus 1. And then if you uncheck it, it's going to decrement. It says increment, but we passed in -1, so it'll remove that purchase if the user unchecks the box. We did do minor changes to the app file and the list file. All we did was pass in the list path here to list. I think Shane and Emily did the same thing, so funny that we both edited this file in the exact same way. And then in the list file, we also passed list path down to list item, which is where we did all of the HTML and work to render the checkboxes. So in list item is where we made the majority of our changes. So here we imported the update item function. And we also, from the dates file in the utils folder, we imported this 1 day in milliseconds. So that way we can reference, we had a way to reference how many milliseconds had passed and how many milliseconds were in a day. So here you can see we passed in that list path. And then, so right here, this function right here basically returns whether or not it's been a day since the item has been purchased. So if the last purchase date isn't null, we're gonna get the difference in the time. So how much time has passed since that item was purchased. If it is less than a day, that 1 day in milliseconds, it's gonna be true, else it's gonna be false. And that's just going to set it so that when the user opens the page, refreshes the page, it's automatically going to set it as true or false, depending on whether or not the item has been purchased within the last day. So that way, if they've checked the item, left the page, come back, it's still going to show checked. If they've checked it or not checked, if it's been more than a day. So that is being passed in as the use state for is checked. And real quick, I'm going to skip down to our form down here. So we have our list item here that is rendering the list of items. And then we've added the input here. So this is going to be the checkbox. And so is checked is what is being passed into the check. So this is what's telling the box whether or not it's checked. And then we've passed a change handler to the on change attribute. So in the change handler, it is setting is checked to not is checked. So if is checked is true, it's going to be changed to false. If it is false, it will be switched to true. That way, whatever the current state of that item is, it's going to be flipped. And then it's going to call the update item function that we passed in from Firebase. So we're passing in that list path, the item ID, and whether or not it's checked. And so that's happening all in our change handler. And then because we are also wanting to make sure that the item unchecks itself after 24 hours, this is kind of where things got a little bit tricky. We are still kind of working on refactoring it a little bit. So you might see one last update from us here today from Andrea and I. So this update timer is a function that basically calculates the time remaining if the purchase was less than 24 hours ago. So let's say they purchased it 12 hours ago, it's going to calculate how much time is remaining. And that is going to get passed into this use effect here, where we have a set timeout function, where we set is checked to false after the time remaining hits 0. And so that's why we've passed in time remaining as the amount of milliseconds for set timeout to be called. One thing that we're refactoring is this conditional statement here. It should be, I think, time remaining equals 0. So that when it's 0, it's this gets flipped to false. And I think that was it. So yeah, we're working on refactoring this so that that condition is correct. And then also potentially passing this function in to purchase 1 day ago, because the conditions are the same if the time difference is less than 1 day in milliseconds. So we're refactoring these two things so that it automatically updates after 24 hours. I think that was it, if anyone had any questions.
Cool. I think this is one of the challenging issue that I seen so far. So good job for implementing this one. Give applause for Andrea and Devina. So my question, I see there is a use memo there, and then how comfortable you are using use memo now after this issue?
I mean, so it was pretty straightforward. Actually, I think Andrea passed this in, so I don't know if you wanted to talk about it, but this was suggested by Lewis. I'll let Andrea talk about it. Just put it in there.
Yeah, so I actually haven't used Memo before, but after Lewis suggested it, definitely worked. And I definitely had to take a look at the docs and kind of see what it does. So that was, I don't know if I'm comfortable using it quite yet, but now I've actually implemented it once. So there's a slight increase level of comfort there.
Okay, cool. Yeah, maybe next time you can try again because you already tried once. Usually you will start again, maybe next time. Yeah, do you have any question from others? Or any comments?
I have a question actually. I noticed your PR currently has a merge conflict. Do you want to go through that in the call?
Yeah, sure. Let's walk through it. I'm gonna share my screen again. if I had to guess, I was looking at it before. I think that it is in the list file, so probably something to do with how we're both modifying list.
Yeah, I think it was literally just the order that we pass things in. So it's super teeny
see.
tiny merge conflict, which is nice.
Okay. Merge conflict, where are you?
You can just go all the way to the bottom and there's a button that you can click.
Resolve conflicts. Okay. So yeah, it looks like it's just here. We both did the same thing, just in different orders. So I can just remove that. Okay. I think that's good. I'm gonna wait to commit the merge though. Just because why is it trying to leave the site? Let's see, did that?
Oh, you
there
have to, there's a green button at the top you have to click
Do we
after.
have to commit? Oh, is it like merge? Okay,
Oh
I see.
yeah, once you edit the file, you have to commit it.
Okay. Commit merge. Okay, but that didn't merge our pull request. Okay.
No, it didn't.
I think it's okay.
You,
And
you
now
might need to
just
pull
another
again.
review.
You might need to pull again in your branch. So in your local, you will get, if you want it, because you mentioned you need to change something again, right?
Mm-hmm.
Might need to do pull one more time before you change something in your local.
In what, in the local?
On your local machine, yeah. So that you pull in the what you just changed.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yep. Now you get the last updated. So you good.
Okay. Cool.
Cool.
Yay. Nice job handling a merge conflict on a call with other people. I know it's scary, but that one was hopefully less scary than usual. Cool. All right. Sorry, Ray, I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's fine.
Wrapping things.
Maybe I will just ask for last applause for Devina and Andrea, which is doing a great job explaining everything, the complicated things. And yeah, I will pass to Kathleen for the next one.
Yeah, very nice job with a very complicated and like tangled issue. Especially, I think it's a very difficult skill to take a complicated idea and then try and simplify it down. And I feel like I can see how you all were doing that through the course of working on this, of like solving something and then refactoring to make it simpler and simpler. And I think that's a really valuable skill. So nice job. Okay, we're gonna do retros now. So we've got like 25 minutes maybe to do this. So same deal as last time. I'm gonna give you all the link and make sure I copied the right link to our retro board. And on there, you can go ahead and write down your thoughts from the past 2 weeks. I hope that's the right one. I'm gonna start a timer, and Ray, maybe if you wanna again pause the recording. But oh, thanks for remembering that, Ray. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen, and then we can just run through. There we go. All right, you should be seeing the retro board. Tell me if you're not. Let's start with appreciations. There's a lot of them, which is great. And first up, we have Emily.
Yeah, I just wanted to even though we've said this already, but I just wanted to reiterate appreciation for Davina and Andrea working through the issue this week. It was definitely, in my opinion, a lot trickier than ours. So you did a great job at, working through it.
Totally agree. Thanks, Emily. Shane?
Sorry, couldn't unmute. Yeah, just really appreciate the I don't know, like the momentum we've got in the project as a group and the energy everybody still has. And that the curiosity is really a big part of like our intention each week. So I just appreciate that.
Agree. I also used the word curiosity in mine, but I thought this was mine. This is Andrea's. Andrea, go ahead.
I wanted to shout out to Davina for just rolling with my super panicky, like last minute refactoring. I want to say like 14 hours ago when I pushed the last bit of code and doing a fantastic job with explaining it all. And for the past 2 weeks for all the thorough reviews from everybody to point out extra edge cases, bugs, other little hiccups or nitpicks that I think just make the code base a lot better.
Nice. Next one's me. I said that I really appreciate the mentor code review that Ray and Lewis have been providing. It's been like really, I think we've all been learning a lot from their insights. And then also similar to what Shane was saying, I really appreciate this team's supportive and curious spirit. I think it makes it a lot easier for us to collaborate together. So you all are a lovely team. So thanks for being lovely. Let's see, the next one I think is Davina. Yep.
Yeah, so I wanted to appreciate Andrea for being so patient and diligent with what has been like one of the tougher issues that we've done throughout this project so far, and really like looking for ways to make our code work better. And then I also wanted to appreciate Shane, Lewis, and Emily for the insight they provided when they were reviewing our pull request.
Love it. Yeah, and while sick too, Andrea, that was really good. Let's see. Next is Lewis.
Yeah. I wrote that I appreciate all the hard work of the collabs, even when the issues are challenging. I feel like no one's too overwhelmed, and you're all kind of working together to bear the load of all the work. So great job.
Nice. Let's see. Next is Ray.
Yeah, I just want to shout out to everyone for amazing teamwork, mentors, and also collabs.
Let's see. This is Emily.
Yeah, I just wanted to second the appreciation for the mentor code reviews because I have been learning a lot just from that, let alone, doing the actual coding of to fix the issues.
Yeah, love it. That's always a good sign when you're learning through your code review. And that's why asking questions is a helpful thing to do as well in that. This is Shane.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that use of use memo was like really helpful to see in action. I hadn't really messed with that too much, and seems like something that I'll have a better grasp of in the future just for seeing it this week.
Yeah, love it. And last was Davina.
Yeah, I also just wanted to appreciate our mentors who have been supporting us throughout these few weeks and providing us with really great resources when we have questions. These resources have really helped us to learn more about how we can improve our code, and just like, doing so in a way that it's like we're teaching ourselves a little bit. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Very nice. All right, lovely. Great appreciations. Next, we're going to move on into what went well. And first up, we have Lewis.
I just want to say I really like the demos have been great, and the communication and the PRs have been awesome. So great job.
And Shane.
Yeah, I felt like we were a little bit more talkative, or maybe like what do you call it? Collaborative asynchronously this week, and I really appreciated just getting more of that practice in.
Agreed. Yeah. Thanks for calling that out. I know that was a subject of our last retro, so it's good to see. Next is Davina.
Yeah, I think everyone did a really good job of like finding ways to improve the code after receiving, like suggestions from the other teams or from mentors.
I totally agree. Yeah, great job. That's always stressful getting feedback on your PR, or it's not always stressful. It can be stressful, but I feel like you all have gone in with a good attitude of incorporating those suggestions. So very nice job. Next is Emily.
Yeah, I think there's a theme in this one. I also wanted to say that I think we've all sort of made progress and gotten more experience, like having that back and forth in the PR and just working through that
Yeah.
process.
Nice. Yeah, it's good when there's a theme. It means that we all are in agreement about what's going well. So, very nice. Next, is Ray.
Yeah, just want to say I see a lot of improvement for doing pull request process. I think you guys getting more comfortable doing it. So great job.
Great. And this is Andrea.
I thought it was a success that we had our first conflict, merge conflict. It was minor, easily handled, and it was kind of nice to see it in action. I haven't done a merge conflict in a long while, so.
Agreed. Yeah, Lewis, thanks for calling out that we could do that on our call. I think that was a great learning opportunity for us. So, yay, merge conflicts. Okay, great. So those are, it does seem like there were some common themes there. So it's nice that we're kind of on the same page as each other about what's working. And next we're going to look at what can be improved. So the first one of those is Davina.
Yeah, I think overall we've done a really great job on testing edge cases and stuff, but I do think like maybe there's a couple that we haven't, tested for, like on the one Andrea and I are working with this week. It's already been a little bit tough, so we didn't address this particular one. I do think we still have to like, the user still needs to like refresh the page in order for that box to uncheck itself, but things, edge cases that we can always work on, put in the backlog.
Yeah. I think similar to our what went well, I think there are some themes in our like what could be improved in action items, which is also good. Like we're in agreement about what we want to work on. So I think, oh yeah, Emily had another great point.
Yeah, and I don't think this is like wrong necessarily how we're doing it because it's, as designed, but I think it will be very beneficial for us all to kind of come together as a team and talk about the styling aspects and stuff. Whereas so far we've been working mostly just in pairs separately, but I think it'll be beneficial for us to all work together on that aspect.
Yeah, very good point. Definitely, that is definitely when we get to the issue of styling, we definitely encourage you all to like be on a shared call together if possible, whether that's like just staying after our weekly sync or finding another time. But if you all are able to coordinate additional times to talk, I think in the past we've found it very helpful for teams who have started talking about styling ahead of time to feel less overwhelmed when they get to that last issue. So that's a really good call out. And I also, while we were doing retro, I did create a discussion board for us. So I'll share that link where we can just start dropping ideas. But I think Emily's idea of also like talking sometime might also be helpful. So good things to keep in mind. Okay, and then the last one is for Andrea.
Yeah, so I think on my end, I just need to figure out how to better communicate how we handle things that pop up with the PRs. Sometimes with like nitpicks, it's like, are we going to go ahead and like fix the nitpick? Are we going to try and refactor it? And up until what point we're gonna try and refactor and who's gonna handle that and maybe who's gonna try and handle like the actual merge itself. I feel like that's something I can work on moving forward, just with the communication piece there.
Yeah, for sure. I did want to call out, I noticed that on your PR, I think it's a really good thing that there was some feedback that you were like, yes, we need to fix this immediately. And there's some feedback that you're like, this is valid feedback, but I think that we can handle it in a future PR. I think it's good as the like person writing the code to kind of be able to respond to feedback that way of like, yes, need to do this now, or great feedback. I don't think this is a blocker. Let's do it in the future. Or great feedback. I disagree. And here's why. Like I think those are all, you don't always have to agree with the feedback you get on a PR. So I think that's I wanted to call that out as well. But yeah, this is definitely one of the challenging things is figuring out how to like when are you done with your work, basically. So yeah, that's definitely something we can continue discussing in the future. And then we had a couple of action items here that I think were similar to this first, what could be improved. So this one's from Shane.
Yeah, just an idea in general that comes up as we've been working on the issues where the more we add, the messier these components are sort of getting. And at a certain point, we might want to sort of like kind of piece them into smaller chunks as long as we're okay with adding more files to the code base itself. So just doing that all like at one time rather than trying to do it alongside the other issues is probably the best way to do that. But we don't have to, just an option.
For sure, yeah. I think this kind of goes along, it's not the same idea, but it's a similar suggestion to what Emily said of just like having some like bigger picture conversations as a team and figuring out the strategy. Yeah, definitely feel free to, if we want to start another discussion board or if you just want to on Slack start a conversation for those bigger ideas. I think that's a great instinct. But yeah, definitely refactoring is a good thing to do if you all find a need for it. Davina, this one's pretty straightforward.
To continue on that refactoring train, we're just gonna make like 1 or 2 small changes to the pull request for issue number 9. We'll push that sometime today. We'll tag you guys when we're ready to have it reviewed.
Beautiful. Yep, sounds good. And then Emily had one more.
Yeah, just sort of kind of going back to what we were talking about before of like ideas that came up as we were working on this sort of UI issue of just adding issues for things that we might want to add that might improve the user experience, such as like adding the list name to the list view so that people are oriented, what list they're on.
Yeah, I love it. I think I've mentioned this before, or someone has mentioned it, but just in case not, you can always feel free to, there are like the set number of issues, the 14 issues that came like loaded into the app, but you are definitely welcome to, if you think that there is something like there's a bug that comes up that is like not in the scope of one of the issues, you can always create a ticket, create a new issue. And like if, for example, like one way you could handle this refactoring of code or something, like you could create an issue of like, we're going to refactor this, like we've agreed as a team, or there's a bug I've found. You can always just come to the issues pane and create a new issue. And like, if there's discussion, if someone wants to push back, you can always have that conversation there too. So that's another way to kind of organize those thoughts. But wonderful. So I forgot to start with last week's retro, which is usually a good thing to do, is to look at the action items from last week, but we can take a quick look right now before we pass it over to Lewis. So one of the action items was talking about Toastify. I don't believe we've yet incorporated this because I think that was going to be future work. Is that right? We haven't yet done Toastify. Okay, just making sure I'm right. The other one was about communication and expectations around communication. It sounded like one of the themes from this week's retro is that that's been going pretty well. People have been responding to Slack messages and providing PR reviews. Do we feel pretty good about the past couple weeks on communication? Do we feel like this is something we need to continue discussing as a team?
Actually, I have a question kind of related to that, maybe. So for the mentor reviews in particular, sometimes, like I think in the past couple of weeks, Ray and Lewis have been providing reviews sort of like us like requesting a mentor review, which is fine, obviously, but my question is more of like if they make a suggestion and then we implement it, change our code, I guess I've been assuming that we want to request a review from the person that provided the feedback, but is it the case that we could get like a review from do we still want to ping all the mentors and we could get like an approval from anybody?
you definitely can get an approval from anyone. I think it's a good instinct that if someone gave specific feedback, it's helpful to like see, you know, if you want to make sure that you're hitting the points that they brought up, it's
Mhm.
helpful to ask them. So I would say it's good to just tag everyone in case that person doesn't have capacity, but
Mhm.
I would try and prioritize that person's feedback if they're available.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's a great question. Cool. All right. So I think that brings us to the end of our retro. I'm going to stop sharing and pass it to Lewis to look at our issues for the week.
Okay, cool. I'll share my screen. So for this week, we're doing issues 10 and 11. It says here issue 10 will be for Emily and Andrea, and issue 11 will be for Shane and Davina. So I'll start with issue 10 first. As a user, I want to be alerted when I'm entering an empty item or an item that's already on my list. So users shouldn't be able to add empty items to the list or add the same item twice. We just need to show an error message that explains the problem. I think in a previous issue, you might have done something like this, but this one we'll need to check for, no, I think you did it for uppercase and lowercase, I believe. We'll need to check for spaces as well, and then also probably special characters maybe. So just go through some test cases to see if similar items have already been added. So yeah, there's a couple of ways. It's pretty open-ended. You can make it as simple as you want or as complicated as you want. So that's this issue. Does anyone have any questions with issue 10? Okay. Issue 11 is a little bit longer, or a little bit more details. As an as an item, I want my estimated next purchase date to be computed at the time the purchase is recorded, so I can learn how often I buy different items. So there's a function in the app called the calculate estimate, which you'll be using. It comes from a package called shopping list utils that's already installed in the app. You can use that to calculate the next purchase date for your application for your item. So you've seen in Firebase, there's a last purchase date and there's next purchase date. So now we're going to be working with the next purchase date fields in this issue. So when the user purchases an item, the item's date next purchased is calculated using that calculate estimate function, like I mentioned, and it's saved as a date in the database. There's a function called get days between dates, which is in the date.js file. And you can use that to get the number of days between two JavaScript dates. I think this week we had an issue where if we uncheck an item, we just set the last purchase date to null. And there was a comment about maybe storing the last purchase dates in an array. So you might need to do that in this issue to get it working again, the unchecking. So that's one thing to think about. So that'll be this issue. There's some details here about how the next purchase date is calculated that you can also read through. Does anyone have any questions about the acceptance criteria for this one? Okay. So those are the two issues then.
Great. Yeah, and as we'll want to make sure that the issue 9 has been like merged and everything before you create your branches. So definitely make sure that we're or if you've started it, make sure you're pulling it in. So just make sure we're continuing to communicate well with each other to prevent any issues cropping up. And if you do have any questions, feel free to reach out to the mentors. Yeah. Oh, and this week's learning module is going to be on navigating finances during a career change, which is a really interesting one. Highly recommend that one. And we'll be discussing that one and the LinkedIn one from this past week at next week's sync. Shane, did you have a question?
Yeah, just a quick one. For issue number 11 for the acceptance criteria, am I correct in thinking that there are no like user-facing elements that need to exist for this to be complete? Is this a we'll see the interaction with Firebase itself? That'll be like our way of confirming it.
Yeah, because issue 13 will be the next piece where you sort the list based on how soon you're going to purchase it. But if you want to do it just for testing purposes, you can put like a number next to the list item.
Cool. Makes sense. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, good question, Shane. Any other questions about the issues or what to expect this week? All right. In that case, we will leave you to it. Andrea and Davina, let us know when you're ready for us to take a look at that refactoring. And yeah. Oh, and this week, I don't remember who is doing office hours. Is it?
Oh, it's me.
It's Lewis.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So
I'll
Lewis-
send a schedule thing for this today.
Perfect. All right. And we'll see the rest of you this upcoming week. Have a good first week of March. Bye, y'all.
Bye.